Three, two, one, and welcome to the Crowley Report for this day, January 15th, 2021. We are 118 hours away from the inauguration of Joe Biden. Come hell or high water, and I mean, I may mean that literally. And along with us, we have AJ Kaufman, who has been all over the place this week, including the Ed Morrissey Show and alphanews.com. And how's it going with you?
Good. I'm all over in terms of being on the air. I haven't left the county though this week, or the city.
Well, that's what your elected officials. That's what Governor Tim Walz exactly wants you to do.
Seems that way.
Stay at home. As you know, the Lincoln Public Schools were closed today. I see you got your Columbus Blue Jackets cap on, which I find interesting. I got relatives in Columbus, but I was on a message board. I was watching an NHL game. I think I was watching the Wild game last night, and someone goes, "Why does Columbus still have a team?" He goes, "Have you ever met a Columbus Blue Jackets fan?"
Yeah, my cousins who live there.
Yeah, no, I got uncles and cousins. Yeah, they go to their games. I got relatives that are involved in hockey.
If you think about it, Kurt, it's the only NHL team in Ohio, so that's 10 million, 12 million people. But they do get squeezed out a little bit because you got Detroit 4 hours away and Pittsburgh 3 hours away, so they do get squeezed a bit, like most Ohio teams do, by Pennsylvania and Michigan and even Indiana in other sports.
And like Austin, Texas comes to mind. I guess they're finally getting soccer this year, which we really don't count.
Oh, I'm sure they'll love soccer in Austin.
It will be a smash hit, yes. But the Cowboys aren't going to allow another football team in the state, and you need a dome stadium or a retractable roof or whatever for baseball, and I guess hockey could be a possibility.
Speaking of Austin, a question you may be able to answer, or many viewers maybe can answer later. I noticed that the University of Texas is playing in a empty arena still, but most Big 12 teams, especially Kansas and Iowa State and others, have full arenas. Is that an Austin policy? It's certainly not a Texas policy.
Wow. I can tell you for a fact, I did see a couple of portions of a couple University of Texas football games, and they allowed, there was something like 20% capacity.
Well, that's outdoors.
It's outdoors, and that might be the deal there. And their football stadium has about 100,000 capacity. Now, I did see a couple pictures of the Houston Rockets game after that crybaby James Harden got traded, and I noticed fans in the background. I think the Utah Jazz.
Right, but in college, if you look at the Big Ten, for example, it seems like there's no fans at any college arenas, whether it's Nebraska, a more rural conservative state, or Ohio and Michigan or Pennsylvania. But in the Big 12, Lawrence, Kansas, which is a liberal college town, but in a red state, they have 3,000 fans. And TCU, and there was a game in Fort Worth they played, a neutral site. They had fans, Iowa State. So my guess is the city of Austin somehow was able to make a demand there be no fans, because every other team in Texas, it seems like, and Big 12 team has fans. So I just don't know. I'm sure we could look it up, but I'm not going to.
I will be looking it up at some point tonight. I wanted to start with, you sent me this about an hour ago.
Oh, no.
I've never heard of her.
Don't hurt my reputation.
I mean, I know you like Abby Hornacek.
Yeah.
Hornacek. I know. I mean, I have no idea who she is. I guess she's wearing. It's got a little spaghetti strap or something.
Yeah.
I guess she's from South Dakota, so this is right up your alley.
She's a conservative, blogger. She's out there. She's pretty far right wing, but she goes on Fox, and I was just surprised. I mean, it is January, first of all, and then it's one thing to wear a sleeveless shirt, which plenty of news anchors do, old and young, but this seemed a little bit inappropriate, not just the sleeveless, but the low cut of it. But she's trying to get the attention of the Fox News viewers.
I mean, it's like a little bit down the Alyssa Algun path.
I had no comment.
All I see is her picture on it, and she's actually an excellent commentator.
She is, and so is Abby Hornacek. I mean, again, and Tommy Lahren.
She's a Wisconsinite. She's from Eau Claire. That's
right. And so are most of these. We talked about Katie Emmer last week, Piper Shaw at Wisconsin, our friend Kirsten Kroll, your friend, the girl from 4 or 5 years ago whose name escapes me. She's a Red Sox fan. She's from Minnesota. Help me out here.
Taylor Budge.
Taylor Budge.
She's somewhere in the Dakotas.
They're all pretty good. I mean, the point is, we went through this last week. If you're talented, you should be on the air.
It's just a hard time to break into the sports industry right now. Now, in a full college football season, you have 60 games on a weekend, and almost all of them are televised. And you see the, they have 55, 60, they're all aspiring, maybe mid-20s. There's someone on Stadium, it's like the Mountain West, there's some backwater conference, and it's someone, Kirsten Balboni. And
she related to Steve Balboni?
Possibly.
Did we ask Tad Stryker? Tad Stryker's watching. Tad, can you help us out, Tad? Former Kansas City Royal.
Tad Stryker, you're referring to?
I think Tad would be a good guest to have on. I think he might come on sometime.
Yes, yeah, that would be a good one. And the other thing I was thinking of is Andy Ring. But I'm sure he is very thrilled with school being canceled in Lincoln, Nebraska today, over 2.5 inches of snow and 50-mile-per-hour winds.
Well, look, schools have been open in Nebraska, at least, unlike most states.
It has.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't look, if they want to have a snow day, Monday's a holiday, which, in the real world, if you had a snow day Friday, maybe you go to work or school on Monday since you missed Friday, but we'll see. It's there's a real fight going on, and that's kind of our topic about these schools. And the unions obviously are not in favor of, I'd say, almost ever opening, but certainly before the fall in the bigger states, which is basically borderline criminal. That would be 18 months closed and students at home with their parents and also getting a subpar education. But I've seen even some of my liberal friends have said this is enough. Ones that have kids and don't have kids.
Right.
Fauci has said we should reopen the schools. People who are not ideologically, conservative or Trumpian or, whatever, the kids are safer at schools. The positivity rates are generally below those in the broader community. And of course, the most important thing, if you care about the low income students who have the fewest alternatives outside of school and their parents have to work double shifts or whatever, it's just really unfair. You're benefiting the privileged upper middle class kids who have parents at home or who can hire tutors. It's just so backwards. And it just shows the unions, as I've said for 17 years now, do not care about school children. Maybe it's not their job to care about school children, but they should at least admit they don't care about school children. They care about the teachers getting paid every 2 weeks and working as little as possible.
Well, as I noted on KAC Media in a column about a week and a half ago, that only half of the Chicago teachers were showing up as they're trying to get the special needs classes and the preschool classes. And now only about 50% of the students are showing up for the virtual classes.
That's another thing, right? Yeah.
So it's going both ways.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate to hurt the most vulnerable, and it's really unfortunate that that teachers. I think there's some teachers should demand that they want to go back. I know some of them probably privately would say they want to go back, but everyone else is going to work. I mean, yes, you and I have a benefit of working from home for the most part, but my wife has to go to work most days. She can still do some of her therapy from home, and every other person, every blue collar, white collar person, pretty much has been back at work, if not since when Corona started, at least since the summer or the early fall. I mean, and schools, I know it sounds weird to say it because there's so many kids and so many germs in theory. Schools follow the science. Schools are not the safest place. They are one of the safest places around. Kids don't transmit it. they don't get it. And if they do, they're fine. And most teachers, because they're able to retire by 55, 60, are young. And so there's a 99.8% chance they'll be fine if they get coronavirus, especially since more than half teachers are under 45. So it's we know what the reason is. And it bothers me to talk about it because some kids are, in 8th grade, missing a key year, or 11th grade, or even 5th grade. This is bad.
We're going into a second year of this.
They are. Yeah, they missed the whole last third of last year.
Now, if you agree with those graphs at I don't know whose the site, I can look. I have it pinned. It projects what the numbers are going to be in the coming months, and they have actually said that it is going to start to wind down a little bit. And for some reason, I am not able to.
Well, that's the goal. The goal is to get with the vaccines. If Joe Biden is correct, and look, politics aside, I hope he's right, 100 million shots in 100 days. Well, all of a sudden, then you've got over a third of the country will have been immunized. And that should get us closer to whatever herd immunity Dr. Fauci or the experts say will get us safe. But will the schools open? By the way, 100 days, Kurt, from January 20th is like May 1st. In Nebraska and in the South, the school year pretty much ends just after May 1st. So now I know those schools are open, but in Minnesota, they end around Memorial Day. In LA, they usually end in mid to late May. So if you really did get them open around May 1st, what are you going to have, 2 or 3 weeks of school and then give them 3.5 more months of a paid vacation? Just unbelievable.
It's not like I try to figure. I've got the chart in front of me now, and you know how they work. It's like the quote current projection, the quote rapid vaccine rollout, and if we all do universal masks for the rest of eternity. But I guess by a month from now, let's go February 15th, it'll be down to 1,703 days. If somehow everyone lifts all the mandates, we're going to have 5,430 deaths per day. Of course, that's not going to happen.
For the next month?
Yeah. So I got it right here in front of me. February 15th, it would be 17. It would be 1,703 for universal mask. So wait. I didn't have this on share. You see it right here in front of me.
Yeah, but I saw these charts like back in last April, and they were, by June 1st, we were supposed to be way past the peak. So obviously there's things have changed with vaccines and testing.
Then, even when it started, we were warned about the second wave potentially being much worse than the first wave. And I think we went over 2 million deaths worldwide today.
Yeah.
We're also going over 400,000 deaths in the United States alone. And I think the final numbers from the 1918 Spanish flu was
several million.
500 million caught it. So it would have been about 1 in 6 people, but there were also 50 million deaths. So out of everyone who caught it, 1 in 10 died, if my math is correct.
We won't get to 1 in 10, thankfully, at least not here.
Yeah, no. I mean, that was a different time, catching the flu.
Yeah, and you know what? It's amazing. I'm a pretty good historian, I like to think, and I don't remember reading about the 1919 pandemic in any history book. It's amazing to think.
I just looked up the Wikipedia page. So.
I know, but I'm saying that's been brushed by history. World War I, right after World War I, you go right into the Roaring 20s. What happened? The global pandemic that killed, 10% of the world. I mean, it's never discussed. This one will be discussed, obviously, and as it should be. But man, that was horrible. And people moved on. They had a successful decade economically right after that, and maybe that'll be the same now. But
yes, and then of course there are the Drudge links that the mask mandates will never be lifted. It will just be lumped in with the flu and everything else. And we'll have the same restrictions, but it's going to be the flu and what's left of COVID. And that quote, COVID will always be around. And as he told me months ago, and others said months ago, it will be around. It will just be lumped in with
Yeah.
pneumonia and the common flu.
Yeah.
And that.
Yeah. Yep. It'll be like the common cold or the common flu. And that's not conspiracy. That's what it'll be. It may not be for a year.
No, yeah, it's common sense.
Right. Once you have a vaccine. I mean, we used to die from polio and everything else too. So
And-
this chart though, at least is decent in terms of it gives you 4 options. Now universal mask is kind of a catch-all term that you hear. Like, does that include, should I be sitting here with a mask right now? I mean, universal mask.
I saw California say you should wear a mask inside now because otherwise you are increasing your chances.
That's Dr. Barbara Ferrer, who's not a doctor of anything but baloney and nonsense, frankly.
Would that be like the future first lady?
Pretty much. I mean, I think she has a little more medical
Biden
training, but I mean, she also makes $411,000 a year to be the chief doctor in California, and she's not really even a doctor of anything relevant to COVID. Whereas the incoming first lady has essentially a master's degree in education, but a little bit more than that, and she demands to be known as doctor, which of course is funny because a lot of people thought she was a doctor. I remember hearing people on the View, which is not exactly a place where you have intelligent discussion, but Whoopi Goldberg or Joy Behar said a year ago.
God, I think the last time I watched that, I was in a waiting room somewhere.
Yeah, well, that's where they get their viewers from. But they said it's good. This is about a year ago. It's good that we'll have Dr. Jill Biden in the White House because she is a doctor after all. She can help with the coronavirus. She's a teacher.
Sounds like something I would hear on Treyon and Sarah. They would always be in the break room at noon every day. I don't know if
you hear. Speaking of that, CNN is pulling out of the airports. CNN is not going to be on TV.
I saw that. I don't know if you emailed that to me or I got that somewhere else. But what are they going to put on there?
I have no idea. Maybe just some.
It's like I go to the gas station. I'm pumping gas, and ESPN comes on, and they're talking about the college football playoff and who should get in and who should not, or whatever, or who should be the head coach of what NFL opening.
That's how they
really got to get Eric Bieniemy hired somewhere.
Well, CNN said it's too expensive to have it in the airports. They've been there 30 years. And I think what their rationale was, and I'm not disagreeing, people are on their phones so much that they don't even look at the TV anymore. But the old joke is that CNN got half of their ratings from people in the airport. I mean, the point is you're stuck in the airport, it's on at the bar in your waiting area. That's when you watch it. And it was a smart move, and they were willing to spend the money.
Break room, various places I worked at. I mean, I had no idea who Wolf Blitzer was until.
But someone puts that on in your break room. I mean, you go to the hotel lobbies when I travel, you can kind of tell, by the way, what part of the country you're in by whether they have CNN or Fox on when you're checking in or in the morning when you're checking out. If you're toward more of a city, Chicago, what have you, it's CNN. When you're in a more rural area, it's more likely they'll put Fox News on. Not because I think the owner is conservative or liberal. I think they know who their customers are. The hotel in Fort Scott, Kansas is different than the hotel in Chicago.
Oh yeah. You check in at the hotel. You hear it blabbering. I'm going like, I would hate to work there and hear that 8 hours every day. My mind would. I mean, it's just so much other places to get news. We were watching Newsmax at the Omaha Hotel between timeouts of the Monday Night Football game.
Yeah, well, some people.
Wow.
There have been a few times I've read articles about people at the breakfast area having arguments with either each other or the hotel staff about why do you have Fox News on or why do you have CNN on? You're in there for 5 minutes. Calm down. But Good Morning America. Maybe Good Morning America.
Signal.
Neutral.
Yeah. Good Morning America. I got so many emergency room, middle of the night. They have on this lighthearted show, and like I got a serious situation on with my family, and got this stupid show on, and they were talking about people. If I remembered that time, someone who was very sick and needed care and had to pay out more in medical bills than she was making. It was one of these type of stories. I'm going, Oh my, yeah, it's like, yeah, don't put me in that boat. But
Exactly. So what's the next
anyways,
one?
that's, I'm kind of going by something that happened personally, actually, when my mom passed. But one thing I wanted to show you, I went to the Billwork site before, in
Favorite site?
preparation. I know you have your topics. So we have even talked about the Capitol. I guess it's officially called the January 6th Capitol insurrection.
According to Wikipedia, yes.
Yes, that's called an attempted insurrection. And Charlie Sykes has been saying all week, you don't realize how close we came to hostages and possible assassination of political figures within the chambers of the House and or Senate. But I found this, and it was titled "The Cult is Ruining People's Lives." And I haven't thought of the mega movement in this quote cult-like fashion like Branch Davidian or what was it, Jim Jones way back in the day or whatever. But I read this. It puts number one, it's a cult. The writer's name is Jonathan V. Last.
Jonathan V. Last, JVL as he's known, is a very good writer, but he's also part of the Bulwark, which means he is 100% of what his writing is now is anti-Trump, not conservative.
Right.
Good writer, good thinker. Maybe he'll return back to being just a normal conservative.
They get it usually alternates between Amanda Cunningham, who works for CNN, and someone named Bill Kristol has another.
Bill Kristol, well known, hated by the Trumpians. Yep. All very smart conservative people, and I respect all of them, except they've all spent the last 5 years not talking about conservatism, not talking about the left, but focusing on Trump. And if you look at the Bulwark, look at the top of their main page, like their theme is like impeach, evict, but not the triad, but the actual main.
They actually changed it earlier in the week. It was, what did you think was going to happen?
Right. Well, that's cute.
I've heard Sykes for the last couple months go, this is the fat Elvis phase of the Trump presidency. And then after the election, how bad can this end? I mean, at some point he has to face the 5 stages of dying. You finally get to this acceptance stage. It won't happen with Trump. But
I think this is you can go ahead. It's just that I think these people are, I don't know how well-meaning they are anymore, but I think there's a way to be opposed to Trump if you want, while still talking about the left and promoting conservatism if you're a conservative. And these folks have just decided to make a lot of money, the Lincoln Project too, off hating Trump and hating Republicans, and supposedly they're Republicans. So anyway, go ahead with this. I read it too.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't know if Sykes is. I'm going like, just say you're liberal now. I know all I knew about him in Milwaukee was kind of Mark Belling light.
Yeah, he was
conservative. Be a competitor to him, but here it is. Here's the picture. I'll even expand it a little bit.
I can see it. We're good.
That's from the insurrection, and I guess that is the vice president's chair. Someone from Getty Images that took the picture.
Via Getty.
And mandatory credit.
Yep.
If you want to, I'll put that photo on your website. It'll be $1,500. But we found out who she was.
Yeah.
And you'll love this. And
I know.
Her name is Christine Priola. She lives in Cleveland. And until January 6th, she was an occupational therapist with the Cleveland school system.
Not a classroom teacher.
Yeah, she worked with special needs, from my understanding.
Right. So she was off work that day, apparently.
She took the day off. Right. Or was AWOL.
AWOL. Yeah.
Probably the latter. I could probably call it 5 a.m. But arrested Christine Priola, school therapist who stormed the Capitol and got to the VP's chair. She quit her job the day after the riot. I will be switching paths to expose the global evil of human trafficking and pedophilia, including in our government and children's service
Yeah,
agencies.
look, that's good. By the way, just on the surface, that's a good plan. I mean, there's a lot of problems out there with human trafficking and our
Yes.
government services in Minnesota. There's a ton of problems with pedophilia, human trafficking, and abuse. So yeah, good for her in that sense. I'm not
Okay.
sure why anyone would mock that.
So that's why, and it goes, and we got some of the other information that got dug out from, the various news accounts or internet or whatever. 49 years old, 10-year employee, worked occupational therapist again with special needs kids. And day after the insurrection, she resigned from her job. And either that or the others that have been caught have been fired. I think we got a former Olympic swimmer that has turned himself in. A car dealer from Savannah, Georgia, has just got fired. And then it said what her
So all this stuff that
resignation.
you're reading here, all this stuff seems pretty, aside from breaking into the Capitol, which is a crime, but
Yes.
I will not, all this sounds normal. I will be exposing the global evil and human trafficking. I do not agree with my union dues, which help fund people and groups that support killing unborn children. That's a view that probably half the country has. Not taking the coronavirus, her right. If she's not going to go back to school, fine. So again, I read this and I was trying to figure out till I got to the end what their point was. So keep going down.
Okay.
Middle-aged professional woman dedicated to her career, probably with a pension, and then she's with the little rascals and the horn man.
Yep. There they are.
Right. So all this is fine. And then they get into the psychological, sociological look at why she did.
Facing up to 2 years in jail. That's like talk about fans attending sports events. What happens to when a fan runs onto the field?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, those are people that get fired from their jobs the next day, for one. And not only that, there's going to be 6 security officers that are going to tackle them like an NFL linebacker.
Usually, yep.
Yes, it usually doesn't end well.
So you see, then he hypothesized that she might be doing drugs, which I don't think he needed to do. The writer said she might be doing substance abuse. And then it says, see that? And then it says a devotion to conspiracy theories. Look, I think a lot of the Trump people that stormed do have conspiracies. I don't see anything in that summary of hers, frankly, that's conspiratorial. Global trafficking and pedophilia and all that. I don't know what the problem is. So then he gives examples of people. I think this is a little bit of a stretch, but he's trying to use her experience or life to say there's millions like her. Maybe, but he says it suggests a big chunk of mainstream American politics has moved into the realm of extremist cults. And the new cult devotion is not national pride or a random charismatic figure. It's the president and his party. Okay, there's some truth to the fact there is a lot of people who have replaced their love of country or what have you with love of Trump. I get it. It happened with Obama too. It happened with Bernie Sanders. Political party? No, I don't think most people that were in this thing were saying, go Republicans, yay GOP. In fact, a lot of them probably don't like the Republican Party for various reasons. So I think it's a stretch. QAnon, not my thing, but I think this is a real stretch of a post by Last. I see where he's getting at, but I think he's really speculating way too much.
Well, he mentioned Scientology and Hare Krishnas, and something is happening at a very deep level. Donald Trump, QAnon, and the Republican Party, and much of American Christianity, both Protestant and Catholic, have congealed into an incoherent.
It's a lot of hypothesizing, something that's not quite politics, not quite religion,
right?
Not quite. He may be right, but I don't know. It just seems to be a little bit much. And I think it's this story. Once Biden's inaugurated, I think half of these people, not all, but half, will return to their, if they're not arrested, or return to their regular lives of being, having their occupation.
They're finding them. There are cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
I will suggest, and we will hear this for months and maybe even years, of people that they actually catch, or some others will pull a Steve Bartman and actually succeed in living in seclusion for the next
forever,
or move to Costa Rica or wherever, or
Do you
Bogota.
think is there more beyond this last paragraph? Was there more? I forget.
Oh, it's just
Yeah.
Marco Rubio gets a mention.
Yeah, I don't know why he's picking on Rubio and Portman. They're more moderate. They should be ashamed of themselves. Marco Rubio and Rob Portman are not hardcore Trump supporters. So I don't know. I think the Bulwark, I used to listen to the podcast, I think you started listening maybe because I mentioned it. And about 3 months ago, 4 months ago.
I mean, it does have good information.
Yeah, it's a good podcast. And I respected a lot of the writers, and some of them maybe will come back to the forefront. But I just find posts like this to be unhelpful. There's no conclusion. And if I'm going to read stuff that's like conservative but not pro-Trump, I'll go to National Review. I'll go to the Dispatch. I'll go to Commentary Magazine. They're more nuanced. This is just gobbledygook in some ways.
And there have been a lot of names with the new, we talked about Mary Miller last week.
Mhm.
And then this week, well, first, Ashley Babbitt, she was, and her husband, he has QAnon supporters. They own a billiard shop in San Diego. And then we had the one in Colorado. She represents
Congresswoman?
Congresswoman.
Lauren Boebert?
Exactly, middle of nowhere, Colorado. Everyone in Denver's calling for her resignation.
Yeah, think about Colorado, how divided that state is.
Rightful Colorado. The name says it all.
Well, here's a state that voted for Biden and Hillary by 10 points. It's moving left every day. It's a blue state. You've got an area like Denver, which is as liberal as Minneapolis or Atlanta, or even almost to the point of like Seattle. But then you've got a western part of the state that includes Aspen and Grand Junction and some cities that you might think are more liberal that elects someone who's way out there to the right, way out there easily. And so it's interesting how divided. And Eastern Colorado also has a very conservative congressman, though not more as conspiratorial or like Lauren. But it just goes to show you how states can be divided.
Eastern Colorado is kind of Baja, Nebraska.
Yeah, right. Well, I've always thought that, I think Eastern Colorado would like to be adopted by Nebraska and made part of their state because ideologically and culturally, it's pretty similar to most of Nebraska.
Until you hit almost the city limits of Denver and actually
airport pretty much. Yep.
And then there's Taylor Greene, who first order of business
Biden,
21st is going to order article of impeachment against Joe Biden. And
and
actually, Sykes commented at whatever his guest was yesterday, and the guest said, good luck with that.
No, it's not going to happen, but
an outlier. They
pick on these people. That's two new congresswomen. There's also an article I wrote 2 months ago about the Freedom Squad or Freedom Force of the Republican Party, which are 12 new Congress people, all either minority or female, all mainstream conservatives, highly intelligent, successful, and Charlie Sykes will never bring them up. So I think it's disingenuous. Maybe that's his goal, but there's 12 of them, and there's a few others that are excellent conservative, moderate people. Even two of them, frankly, voted for impeachment for Trump. So they're frankly should be commended by Bulwark, but they never mention them. They focus on Boebert and Greene, who just took their seats a week ago.
And we texted each other right at the same time. While most of the senators, the GOP senators, turned against Trump and voted for the impeachment, not many of the House representatives did. There are only 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 10, but that's 10. That's not one. I mean, that's, and regardless, I mean, that's still, I'd like to.
Well, Sykes said he found that to be an astounding number.
Yeah, he wrote, I saw the post he wrote yesterday. He called it a profile in courage. And it's true. I mean, and 8 of them are in districts that Trump won. And a couple of them, like Liz Cheney, in a district that represents a whole state as a congresswoman that voted 43 points for Trump. So it's a risky, brave move, whether you agree with it or not. I saw a couple of comments from Republican congressmen who did not vote for the impeachment, but still said, I respect Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger because they have nothing to gain by this. They're doing what they think is right. And they're a lot braver than some of the conspiratorial people and others. And frankly, more than Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz, who kind of embarrassed themselves last week with their antics. So anyway.
And then Anthony Gonzalez in Ohio.
Right, Anthony Gonzalez. Yes.
I think he's in Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, Canton area. It's a it's a Republican district, but not overwhelmingly. And he's only 35 years old. He's got a
33.
ahead of him. He could easily get primaried and knocked off because of that.
I mean, he was playing for Ohio State football not long ago.
And the Colts.
He played for the Colts for a while.
Yep. Impressive guy.
So yes, very much so. Very much so. Very, very much impressed with them. And I had some other topics and feel free to chime in.
We've gotten most of them done, it looks like.
Here's what I got, and let me get the sad off here. Can't really. Actually, before I got on, just to find some additional material, I turned on John B. Wells' little commentary. But apparently, Curt Schilling has made a claim that AIG Insurance has canceled his policy over his political ideology. They say over pro-Trump post tweets. I'm surprised Twitter hasn't kicked him off yet.
I was going to say, did Twitter not kick him off yet?
Yeah, I'm shocked he's still on there. And when said, I know you follow it, you're obsessed with it. When is that Hall of Fame vote?
I hadn't even thought of that. Usually around now. I'm usually in Texas for that roadway conference when it happens. So probably next week, I'm guessing. Good point. Yeah, that's a great point.
And he will get less than 75% of the vote if he went by his baseball exploits. And this guy used to pitch a complete game every fourth, fifth day. Now they just throw in 9 guys to pitch 1 inning, throwing 100.
And that wasn't that long ago. I mean, he was pitching 10 years ago.
Right.
It's remarkable. Yeah, I don't want to get too into the Hall of Fame thing. I haven't even thought about it, but yeah. I read articles last year saying we should consider Curt Schilling's personal and political views when voting for him for the Hall of Fame. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, but so typical of the modern media. I don't remember who wrote it, probably a younger Ryan Phillips type. Hello, Ryan, if you're watching. But, we know Ty Cobb was a racist. We know some of these guys were drug users. We obviously know some of them had left-wing views, right-wing views. That's silly. If you want to debate Curt Schilling's numbers and say that he didn't have 300 wins and his ERA was this or that, let's have that debate. Although I think we've watered down enough of the Hall of Fame that should have been in last year.
It almost seems like everyone who was in their prime professionally 50 years ago or 60 years ago. And I was thinking, I'm reading some Vince Lombardi stuff and that, and I'm going, what would history look at him today? Would we be digging into his ideologies and whether he's Republican or Democrat, like we did with, we've done this week with Bill Belichick, and I think he made the only move he could make in declining the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have lost his football team and perhaps his legacy. Now, unfortunately, Lombardi did not live long enough to get a Presidential Medal of Freedom or anything like that. But you wonder if he had lived into the 90s or the year 2000. I'm trying to think how old he died at about 55. But if he had been around a couple more decades, and if he had said something at some point that would all of a sudden suddenly ruin his legacy, or even today, let's see, we found out stuff about Kate Smith's lyrics from the 1930s. So they got the statue of her outside of they got rid of it off the Philadelphia Flyers arena because they found that. So they pretended she never said.
I just sent you an article, I sent you an article if you'd like to pull it up. I think this is interesting talking about the Hall of Fame. I just skimmed it while we were talking, and I think we could go through it for 5 minutes. And I sent it to you through Zoom.
Oh, okay.
You should be able to get it at the bottom of the page.
Okay. Let me see how.
The gist of it is that there's this writer from Philadelphia. I'm sure.
Oh, okay. Let's see what I got here.
You see it?
I'm gonna get off the screen share, see what that.
I could probably share my screen if need be. You see it in the corner there under chat?
I'm going to look under chat. I'm blind half the time, but
I can
reactions, pause, stop recording, share screen, chat. Yes.
Got
I
it?
got it.
Pull that up.
Okay.
Let's go through that for a couple of minutes and then we can move off of the shilling. But it's January 26th, by the way, when they decide that. So, a week from Tuesday, I believe.
Okay. So I'm gonna get back to the. Here we go.
So,
Oh, that was that I saw that same one too. I didn't have time to look into it.
we'll scroll down a little bit. Now, of course, the guy says his views are abhorrent. Look, I don't know why his views are any more abhorrent than LeBron James's views, but apparently right-wing views aren't allowed. Kurt Schilling's actually pretty educated when it comes to history and politics. They act like there's going to be a far right-wing rally at the Hall of Fame if he's inducted. That's nonsense. Most of his fans are from Boston and Philadelphia. They're not right-wingers per se. Keep going down. So that's a nonsense start to the article.
Oh, so it's gonna be an insurrection in Cooperstown.
Yeah, that's the dumbest thing. I can't believe an experienced writer would
Well,
start.
yeah, could have. You've got these sports events closed off. You can insurrect them.
Yeah, you could. So then you go down and they talk about, they talk about how he likes Trump, which apparently 74 million people like Trump, but that's not allowed.
Oh, that was no pro bono for ESPN.
Right. Keep going down. He summarizes the Stop the Steal rally. Okay,
Yeah,
so
you can't say stop the steal. That's like the 7 words.
you can't. Oh, you can't. It's banned. So he said he gave a what about tweet, which a lot of people are doing. And I've engaged in a little bit of whataboutism only because, while I don't think they're exactly the same, we did have 3 or 4 months of nonstop BLM looting rallies, beating of cops, hatred, ignorance, burning of cities, and the media cheered it on. They didn't even argue that it was anything wrong with it. So he said, you did nothing while liberal trash looted, rioted, burned for Air Jordans, sit back, STFU. Look, it's a harsh tweet, don't get me wrong, but I would argue LeBron James has made 100 tweets just as bad or crazy.
Everything that comes out, like a ruling in the Jacob Blake case, and that he is chomping at the bit with his 68.
And they have and they're so ignorant. By the way, and Jacob Blake thing has been proved to be basically not at all what it came out to be. When he went on Good Morning America or whatever, he basically admitted he had a knife and he was armed, and that's a really crazy. That's not George Floyd. Jacob Blake thing is just totally misleading what happened there. But LeBron doesn't care. Now keep going down real quick because I get to the point about why he should be in the Hall of Fame. So he goes crazy saying, "Oh my God, we should not blah blah blah." No Dixon Schilling. Okay, the ballots have to be cast by December 31st. It already happened. It's funny how
70% of the vote.
Yeah, 70% of the vote. He went up. He did 75%. Okay, keep going down. Notice they get the politics for most of the article. Despite the vitriol from Schilling's social media, no vitriol from LeBron James. He belongs in the Hall of Fame, and he agrees. Anyway,
LeBron James is your Time Magazine Man of the Year, or someone made.
Well, that's the thing. I would just say, to be as fair as possible. But there you go. Some of them are not choir boys. He's a great pitcher. I mean, look, he didn't rape anybody. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't do drugs. Right. Well, as far as we know, he didn't do steroids.
That's Larry Boa. Who you and I were both familiar with. He managed the Padres back in the day.
Yeah, and he says things I don't understand. I just think it's funny. There won't be a single article written. I'm not trying to pick only on LeBron James, but in 7 years, when LeBron James is ready for the Hall of Fame or whatever, or 5 years, if I write it, it'll be the only article written saying LeBron James belongs in the Hall of Fame based on his performance, and then I'll mention all the political things he's done. Say, look, LeBron James belongs in the Hall of Fame. Kurt Schilling probably does. I know LeBron's a better basketball player than Kurt's a baseball player, whatever. But if you're going to bring up politics, how do you not? We're not talking about just a liberal guy, someone who's a liberal, like a Steve Nash or someone. We're talking about the number 1 player in the NBA who is a raving lunatic, ignoramus, bigoted, radical hypocrite who helps China. He's a horrible guy. Okay. I mean, I think he's a horrible person, worse than Popovich and Kerr, because at least they have a brain. I don't agree with them, and they've said some terrible things, but they're not dumb. Kerr, I'm not sure about. Popovich is not a dummy. LeBron James is not an intelligent person. He's illiterate. He's bigoted, and he's just wrong on everything, in my opinion. But no one's going to bring that up. He's the GOAT. He's on every TV, and he's in LA, and he's going to make $100 billion when he's retired doing whatever, which will not help the black community at all.
Hey,
and not help
9 p.m. Central Time, Lakers on ESPN tonight.
And that's all well and good. Yeah,
NBA, it's on all the time.
How are those ratings for the NBA this year?
If you watch sportswars.com with RK from Ryan from RK Outpost, it's gone.
Honestly, and it's funny, who would, and I'm not I like hockey, but I don't watch much regular season NHL, as you know. Regular season NBA and NHL to some degree, the seasons already are long enough. I know they're shorter this year. The playoffs are long enough. It just doesn't gain enough interest. There's college basketball, there's college hockey, there's NFL on the weekends. Maybe I don't know. The NBA, I think, made a mistake. I know they need the money, but to have a 72 game season after they just ended the last season 2.5 months prior was a mistake. It should have been 50 or 60. The NHL is doing how many games? 60?
56.
56?
Yeah, and
That's
I saw part of the St. Louis Blues game the other night, and for the first game of the season, it looked damn good.
Yeah, hockey's good.
Yes. Where in the end, it's load management and everything else, and the Milwaukee Bucks beating someone else 135-97.
A lot of defense.
What does it mean when they lose in 5 games in the second round?
Well, I couldn't believe it when the season ended, and I know not every team played into October, but there were 4 teams that played into October, and 2 of them played to mid-October, and they said the season was going to start originally around MLK Day, which would be Monday, and I said, okay, 60 games, 55 games around MLK Day. Then all of a sudden it was like, we're starting before Christmas. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. The arrogance.
Oh, they wanted those Christmas Day games.
Yeah, which I don't know anyone who wants.
And the ratings for those were.
They're not.
The NFL put a game.
We went through it. Washburn, Bacon.
College games on.
I'm not going to get into it again. We went through it last time. It's not a good product. If you want to watch the playoffs, that's fine. But the NBA regular season is a crappy product. It's not basketball. They don't have teamwork involved usually. And the ratings show. I mean, the fact that anyone could sit down, even in a cold climate like mine, I'm sitting here watching the snowfall outside. It's very cold. But to anyone sit down on a Wednesday night and watch, Charlotte and Oklahoma City on ESPN in a game that no one will remember the second it ends. I like basketball. I'll watch teams in college that I don't care much about occasionally, but there's only 25 games this year.
ESPN doesn't got Charlotte and OKC much on the schedule this year.
I don't care if it's Lakers and Bucks, frankly.
Right. Yeah, Lakers and Bucks next Thursday.
Okay,
well, on their Granny's road trip, although there are no Grammys.
So we got 10 minutes left or so before you got to go, 12 minutes. Do you want to talk college hockey or do you want to talk inauguration?
What I really wanted to talk about is, and thankfully I am not hearing much about it in the media. Hopefully it's not calm before the storm. There is supposed to be a quote secondary protest at the U.S. Capitol at 12 noon on Sunday. Which tomorrow. I don't think is going to amount to a hill of beans because, well, let's put this way with Donald Trump. Not only has he succeeded in putting 450 miles of unquote quote wall along the Mexican border, there is now a wall around the perimeter of the U.S. Capitol. And you think that's going to be a permanent wall? No one is going to be.
I was just going to ask you, is it going to be a permanent wall? I think,
Simon Drudge will consider the source, but.
Well, Drudge has been interesting in the last 6 months or so.
Well, yeah, it has been.
Our friend Andy.
He's counting the hours.
Not exactly pro-Trump anymore.
Yeah, I have noticed. Yeah, pull up the archives from 5 years ago. Yeah, here it is. Permanent fences. I found it.
Well, look, there's more fencing around the White House now than there ever was. And that's not because of Trump supporters. That's because of left-wing agitators who were there with BLM and others even before that to incite violence. So, turnabout's fair play in the sense, I don't want to fence anywhere, but obviously there's a reality that says people want to do harm. But let's not kid ourselves. They were only boarding up stores in LA and DC and every city after the election because they thought Trump might win. They were boarding it up to avoid the left-wing rioters who rioted 4 years ago, who always riot. They were not afraid of Trump supporters. And there weren't any angry protests from November 3rd until January 6th. Now, January 6th was horrible, and I believe Trump does bear some responsibility. In fact, a lot of responsibility. But I don't remember any rowdy Trump protest for 4.5 years. Charlottesville was not a Trump protest. That was white supremacists against Antifa, two really bad groups on each side. And there were no, at the BLM rallies, there were a couple of Proud Boys there, whatever. They weren't the ones burning down precincts in Minneapolis. So it's all bad. Political violence is bad, but let's try to be consistent.
And I guess the other thing I wanted to bring up is there are also supposed to be quote unquote armed protests at all 50 state capitals.
Are you going to be there in Lincoln?
Yeah. Well, Lincoln is preparing, but Governor Ricketts said the Capitol will be open. Concealed carry will be allowed.
Wow.
And he says they are making preparations, security and that, but he feels everything will be fine. But other states,
yeah, Michigan's got a lot of rules, of course.
Yeah, Michigan is, yes. Minnesota is going to be another one. Madison,
yeah, we've got some people up here that
they're boarding up windows of the Capitol.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. As someone who likes to travel to capitals, I was thinking about how many capitals you could hit in a given day on Sunday. If you live in the Northeast, you could probably hit 5 or 6 state capitals in one day. If you live out west, it's a little bit harder, but you could probably hit, Lincoln, Des Moines, and St. Paul.
I could hit Lincoln, Des Moines, and Topeka.
You could easily. Yeah. Pierre, South Dakota is a bit of a hike because it's off the beaten path, but
right.
Yeah. Point is, I don't think anyone's doing that, but it's just kind of funny to think about. Not, funny in a travel sense. Not.
Yeah, it's just scary to hear they caught someone who supposedly had 2,500 rounds. So you got the Alex Jones types and that who've got more ammo in their possession than some small country. So if you want to call it a cult or whatever you may want to call it, it's not necessarily a small deal.
No.
There are people who have called for this quote, and like what Boebert said on her Twitter account, today is 1776. Yeah. So that's been said for years. Now I do plan on taking the trip down, literally in my backyard, as you know, I can walk there.
Yeah.
I'll hang out by the state office building, which is about 3 blocks south of the Capitol. And I'm just going to observe this as a quote citizen journalist, quote amateur media. And that was thereafter
journalists.
Apparently some of the people that were inside the insurrection called themselves citizen journalists.
Yeah.
So now that's another profession that's coming, or another hobby, maybe call it a hobby more than a profession, is quote citizen journalists, or what we're doing here. But I am looking forward to seeing some things that I would not say on Twitter, not say on Facebook, and not necessarily nasty things, but there are things that I want to get off my chest, and not on, it seems like half of anything anyone says on Twitter or Facebook gets canceled. I might make a snarky comment. Sometimes it gets a few hundred comments. Sometimes it gets about 8. I'm going like, it's just like cancer culture at work. So, I'm looking forward to hopefully running into some like-minded people and getting and take the temperature of what's really going on right now. And, I'm pretty sure at least in Nebraska, there's not going to be a major incident, but I do worry about some of the other state capitals with that.
Yeah, I think Michigan, only because they've had protests there before and the governor's been threatened.
Well, when you have a kid, Sykes mentions this about the attempted kidnapping, and people laughed about it at the time. Some people laughed about it, and it's not laughing.
Well, Madison will be interesting because Madison has about four Republicans in the whole city, but they can come from other parts of the state to Madison. But it's rare to see a right-wing protest in Madison.
They'll make the trip from Waukesha and Jefferson County.
Yeah.
What they call the WOW region. They'll be there. So That's hopefully, I mean, when you hear the hyperbole that this might be the largest armed um, congregation to show up somewhere since the Civil War. And like, you have 21,000 troops. You got the picture right here at the
Yeah,
inside the
they're
Capitol.
now in hotels though. That was only temporary, thankfully,
Right, right.
at least until Wednesday, Tuesday.
So is there anything else on your, one thing that I wanted to ask, and I think I've actually made it through my topics is, what do you think is going to happen with healthcare now? Are we going to go, but do we have an Obamacare 2.0, or what do you think is? I mean, and I read like once a year, Paul Lucas on Unowatch will go on a tangent of how can you have health insurance tied in with your employment?
Well, actually, that's something that that I don't disagree with completely. It's not, that's not a political right left argument. That is, in some ways, it keeps people tied to jobs they don't want to do. Certainly, some people
Right.
take jobs they don't like because of it. And also, if you're a young, healthy person, younger than even you and I, and you're making 35,000 a year, and the boss said to you, I spend $11,000 a year on your health insurance. Would you rather have that money, and I could pay you $46,000 a year, and you can do health insurance on your own, and you don't get sick? It's a decent idea. I mean, health insurance tied to employment started way back, I think at least in the 60s, maybe. Someone will probably correct me, but it was a liberal idea, by the way. And now it seems like liberals are more opposed to it than conservatives, though I also oppose it in some ways. It's let the free market decide, some would say. But then again, liberals also want to demand that you have health insurance. That's what Obamacare's mandate was. You must have health insurance. And that is something that more conservatives oppose than liberals.
Like I don't know if you hear the shoveling outside right now, but I could go outside, slip on a patch of ice and break my wrist. And it could cost me $5,000 if I don't have insurance.
Yeah.
Look,
I don't
not to
think
mention the
you
inconvenience
could buy
of getting
catastrophic
sick or
insurance.
having a freak accident or whatever, but the cost.
Catastrophic insurance is something people maybe should have to buy, a small amount.
Right.
I've been to the ER, both with me and my wife, on a Saturday night, and I've seen some of the poorest people, white people, Somalis, what have you. They go right in and they're seen, and I don't think most of them have insurance. And
I have known people who will go to the ER. They have like a cough. If they have a flu, they go to the ER. And it's like, unless there are people pumping on my chest, I'm not going to the ER. If I may have had one or two, I actually went through my VA urgent care on something. I got something stuck in my ear a few years back. But other than that, unless it is life or limb threatening.
But it's true that someone has to pay when people go to the ER. I get that. And, it's not a political argument, but when someone without insurance goes to the ER, they are seen by the doctor. The idea that Bernie Sanders has that some people don't get health care is nonsense. Anyone can go to the ER and they'll get health care. They may not have insurance, and someone else will have to pay for that. And that's where that's socialism or that's unfair. That's a whole different discussion. But everyone gets seen by the doctor. There's a myth that Democrats try to use that it's amazing that 20 million people don't have health care. No, they don't have health insurance, some of them. Everyone has health care. It's a law. Doctors take an oath. So they don't say we're not going to treat the gunshot victim because he doesn't have his Blue Cross card on him.
Yeah, it's like I remember a Sopranos episode, the quote wallet biopsy, where they look inside someone's wallet to find out what insurance they have.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's Sopranos dream gain world.
Well, it's the snow shoveling's going on here too. I need to get out there. The snow's finally letting up, and I think I need to go out and shovel it myself because it's getting rather slushy out there. Let's just say.
Well, we got I got a full 3 inches outside, which is 2 more inches than they forecasted. But contact Andy Rain. I'm sure he'll send you a time lapse of the whole event. And I actually saw little videos of someone, a meteorologist at the Omaha weather station, putting up a weather balloon. And there used to be a TV show called Gotham, and they took kind of evil politicians and that, and they strapped them to a weather balloon and put them up to the top of the stratosphere. I'm going, don't give anyone any ideas right now.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah, not right now.
But
All right.
anyway, I mean, any closing thoughts?
No, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna watch some college hockey tonight on TV and take advantage of not following politics for a little bit. We still can't go in person, but St. Cloud State's in first place in the NCHC. Wisconsin's doing well. The Gophers are doing well. The East Coast teams are non-existent this year, it seems like. So
Do they still have they even been playing, or did they all call the season off?
Boston College is in the rankings somewhere, but the Ivy League type teams aren't playing, and I think Clarkson's up there. But no, at least 7 or 8 or 9 of them are not playing. So that's okay. More space in the field of 16 for Midwestern-based teams.
Cool. So
All right.
there we go. Oh wow! God, now I know how to do that.
That'll be good for next time.
Yes.
Just keep it appropriate.
Oh my! I could be like Madden. Okay, so that's it for the Crowley podcast for today, January 15th, and we'll be back next week or in the very, very near future. So I'd like to thank all of you for joining in, and everyone have a great 3-day weekend.
Yes, some of us have a 3.
Some of
Have
us.
a good weekend. Thank you.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Bye-bye.